In this episode of our photography review show, we're going to be looking at photographers with a mixed team photography. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of our photography review show. For those who don't know me, my name is Jakub. I'm a professional photographer based in West Sussex here in England. And for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been reviewing pictures for my colleagues and friends. And this is the reason why we decided here at Clever Photographer that it's something what we're gonna do for our photography community. So it's been super successful and very popular. And in today's episode, we received photos from 28 photographers. We received over 86 photos. And this is the reason why we have to divide the show between 3 different parts. In today's episode, we're going to be dividing between landscape, mixed team photographers, and then we're going to go through the rest of the different styles we received. We actually received 9 different styles, so it's a lot to go through, and we're going to jump straight into it. But before we're gonna do that, few of the reminders. First of all, we have opened our Clever Photographer Academy. At the moment, it's completely free. You can just join us at Facebook, get in. We do lots of fun stuff there. We review pictures throughout the week. We run photography competitions. We answer questions and help photographers in many different ways. So if you want to join us, at the moment it's for free, so definitely come, click on the join, check it out on Facebook, and find out more about us and join the community of the people who are like us, who wants to really keep moving forward with their photography. And the last thing before we start is the reminder that next week on the 1st of November, we're going to do actually photography review show special. And it's the week where we basically going to run something which is called National Geographic cover, and it's for all those people who think that their pictures are worth it to be on the cover of the National Geographic. It's a lot of fun. We basically gonna take your picture, place it on the cover, and we're gonna tell you if we think that it's worth it or not. We can't wait for this episode. It's gonna be something else, and we hope that you're gonna enjoy it just as much as us. But now, without any further ado, let's jump straight into the reviewing. And hello again, and welcome back to Lightroom, where we're going to be looking at photographers which capture multiple different photography styles. Sometimes we have photographers who send us picture with a portrait and landscape, and it's a mix, and we're not really able to put them in either one of the other episodes. So this part number 2, is where we're going to be looking at photographers with a mixed style photography. So let's jump into it. We have 6 or 7 photographers to look at, and we're going to start by looking at Dave. So Dave, here, let's have a look at your photos. And so you send us 3 pictures right here, which I'm looking at, and it's a mixture. So we have this kind of really dramatic textured black and white photo of the tree, and then 2 pictures which are more like a sport capture, probably from some kind of sport day. So let's talk about first impression first. I really like this one. This is something what I also captured, especially during the last year, during lockdown. I think it works really well. It's kind of the really the way the black and white photo should work. Nice contrast, nice texture with a little bit of glow from the sky, the birds, everything work here. So I'm quite happy with this one. With those 2, I have to say I am not 100% sure about the whole idea. There are some kind of watermarks, and then there is some other editing. I'm not sure if the sky was there like this or you replaced it. There is a glow around the people here similarly. So I'm assuming maybe this is there is no watermark on this one, but there is a really tight crop, and as you can see, there is a glow around the actual ball. So I'm assuming there was also sky replaced on this one, because there is some kind of blue sky left over here, and then there is this dramatic sky with a big kind of star effect here. So I'm not 100% sure about those, but let's jump into it. So let's talk about technical part of the photo, Dave, and this one I really like. I think the detail, the level of the detail works very well here. I think the f-stop 2.4 makes really nice depth of the field. And I think these parts are all sharp, so that works quite well. There is a nice contrast. I think the sky is overexposed, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it quite works for this picture. I think the birds, regardless how they were added, they work there as well. And I think it's a lovely, lovely photo. I don't think I can add anything when it comes to this picture and your technical photography skills. On those 2, obviously these guys are sharp, both of them. So that works quite well. Although the light isn't really perfect, I think you can see there is lots of shadows and stuff. Also, I'm not 100% sure that the ball was actually here. Looking at the movement of the boy, maybe it was, maybe that's just the continuing of the movement, but it's still interesting. Again, there are the birds here. Technically, I think it would be nicer if there would be little bit more of the depth of the field, so maybe some parts of this would be blurred. And again, I can see that the sky was replaced because you can see the blue here on these two parts, and again around his face a little bit, and then you added this dramatic sky, which I wonder if it's maybe similar to this. Either way, so technically I think it's a wrong time of the day to shoot it, although it's sharp, I would maybe play around more with the depth of the field. On this one, technically, I think it's quite well done. I think it's a shame that there is a really tight crop on the ball here. Obviously, all these people, it works. Again, there is a crop down here. Again, it was probably in the middle of the day because the shadow goes this way. Again, that just shows that the sun couldn't have been here, because if the sun would be shining from there, the shadows would be leaning more towards here rather than from the side. So I think that's a little bit unrealistic, those two. So you know what? We're gonna leave those two. There is the sky replacement, which is not really complete. I think the sun isn't really done properly. There is a heavy watermark. So let's jump into one which is really kind of fine arty one. So I think the composition here works really well. I think it's a shame that it's no more balance here on the side. If you know what I mean, a little bit. So the base of the tree may be a little bit more balanced like this. So you have the equal amount of the wood on each side would maybe work a little bit, but in general I think composition wise it works quite nicely. When it comes to the post-processing on this one, I really like the kind of dodge and burn. I think it works nice. I like the glow created by the sky, the fact that it's almost hiding some of the branches. It works very nicely as well, and the birds as well. So I think less is sometimes more, if I have to be honest. I think this is a simple scene with the tree and with the simple editing, where I think here you're just trying to do lots of stuff at the same time. Obviously there is the sky replacement and the glow and the birds and everything. I would just try to stay and start with something a little bit more simpler, Dave. But anyway, thank you for sending us the photos. Thank you for joining us, and I hope to see more of them in the future. If you have more black and white photography similar to this, send them over so we can have a look at them and maybe give you more hints and tips. Moving on next, Evgeny. Evgeny joined us many times before in many different episodes. He's a landscape photographer. He does also a little bit of wildlife. And this week we're going to look at 3 pictures. And in fact, we're not going to look at this one because I already reviewed it for you in the Clever Photographer Academy. And thank you for joining us there. It's great to have you. And we have 2 of these pictures to look at. So let's talk about this. First of all, this one. And I saw pictures of this bridge before, obviously in a different kind of composition and different shapes. So let's talk about it. As a first impression, I quite like it. Again, similarly to before, this is more a picture where the bridge is more the dominant thing rather than the Sydney Opera. So I think it works quite nicely. The framing is nicely done there. There's a golden hour coming from a side, which works quite nice. So I quite like this picture. On this one, I really like the picture. What I'm not sure is the crop. I think that if the crop would have been more like something like this, for example, let's try this first. No. So then more like this, I think it would work much better. Why? Simply because your main subject is obviously the church, you know, and then a little bit of the landscape. But other than the main subject, there is so much other stuff which is just distracting. There is this foreground element which is too small, so it's not really working. I think it would have been better if you would have go to the actual water and maybe just shoot with the water being the foreground. It would work much better. So your main subject is the trees and everything together with the church, and I would focus on that rather than adding lots of sky, which is kind of gray anyway, and this foreground which is a bit small, so confusing. So that would be my add on it. But let's talk about technical part of the photo. Technically, I think this is very well done. I think it's nice and sharp all the way through. I really like the light. I think it's exposed well, and nothing much I can add on this one. Similarly on this one, it's not the best time of the day. Obviously it would be nicer if there would be some kind of golden hour or sunset or different sky. I think also what's a bit confusing is that you have this kind of gray monotone sky in a combination with these warm colors. So I think that's just one shame. There's also a little bit of noise in the sky, and I can see some sensor dust here. So that's something to look at maybe. You can see here as well. It's really easily actually fixed in Lightroom. You just use this little healing brush and you just really go and click, and it does it itself. You can actually use these visual spots and you can click on them and fix them quite quickly actually. If I would just do this and show you when I switch it off, you see it goes really quickly and it really helps to remove these. Anyway, artistically, let's talk about artistic part of the photo. Everything in this area I really like. After that, again, as I mentioned in my first impression, is extra. It doesn't need to be there. It doesn't add anything to the photo. So I would definitely crop it differently. On this one, as I say, I would go closer to the water, use the water as your foreground element. Midground would be the grass and the church, and then just a little bit of the sky, 1/3 of the sky as a background. So in overall, the crop would be probably something like this, or even placing the church in your kind of golden third, and then choosing what are the important parts I would like to have in the actual picture. So something like this, I think, would be working for me. If I could get rid of this completely and just use as a water, even better. On this one, I think the composition is very lovely. I think it's very interesting. I think you have a good eye for composition. Everything here is the way it should be. There is a lovely leading line, a lovely frame in frame for the Sydney Opera. Much better time of the day, so the golden is working very well and it's lovely. When it comes to post-processing, I think your yellow is a little bit off, but we already talked about this in last video, I think. So I think a little bit more purple maybe, just to kind of look at it. And what about exposure? Yeah, I think I would leave the exposure, but that would be it. Maybe just keep an eye on the white balance. Always kind of have a look at the yellow and see how realistic it is and how much it works for you. But other than that, it's lovely. Nothing much to add. There is a lovely texture in the sky. I think it really works. Again, you could kind of add like a gradient here to close the scene a little bit more. Not that heavy, maybe something like this. And that's it. Maybe add little radial to add more focus on the actual opera, and maybe with the brush add a little bit to the leading line. But other than that, it works very well. On this one, post-processing wise, let's check out the white balance. Yeah, it's a little bit bluer, but I think that works quite well. Again, let's see if we have any details. It was 12 o'clock, and that's why it's so kind of harsh. Let's see if we would turn it to black and white, if it would help to anything. Maybe. But then when we turn it to black and white, we're getting lots of this noise coming out. What was the details? ISO 200. It's interesting that you get so much noise with ISO 200 already. It's a little bit of a shame, but yes, obviously with the black and white, you could kind of push the contrast and see for the whites and blacks and bring down the clarity just to make it glow a little bit more, and then do more kind of local adjustments. So something like this. That would be one thing you could do with it. It's just an idea. You don't have to, but it would also look quite nice in black and white. That's just an idea. But in overall, it's a lovely scene. I think what you're trying to do is right. It's just there could be some stuff done a little bit differently. Evgeny, thank you so much for sending us your photo. Thank you for joining us in the Clever Photographer Academy. We love your comments, we love your photos, and we can't wait to see more of them in the future. Moving on. Next, we have Herman. Herman sent us 2 photos. So let's jump into them. Let's see if we have details from them. And if we do, you're using Sony camera. And so we have this photo of obviously gone out fishing. So this is, I'm assuming, out fishing, taking picture of the reflection. And then we have this ruin. So first impression, I think it needs a little bit more editing on this one. Just, if anything, at least to make sure that it's straight. That would be one thing for me. And also your shadow seems to be really harsh. So I'm wondering what time of the day did you photograph this? 10:20, it's not that late, but it's a little bit of a shame. You get lots of these kind of heavy shadows. So the light isn't really that good on this one. On this one, I'm not really sure. It's supposed to be still life. I understand that it's interesting, but there is a lot of noise in the actual photo. I think that's coming from your ISO 400. Let me just zoom in to show you. You see how much noise it creates. And obviously this is kind of blurry. I'm not 100% sure about it. I think this would maybe work better as a black and white. And then really work on adding contrast into the darker areas and so on. But when you turn it to black and white, if the photo is already noisy, it just gets noisier. So that is a little bit of shame. But anyway, let's go through it. Let's go through the rating itself. Let's reset this. And let's jump to it. So, photographically, there is a lot of noise, Herman, I'm not gonna lie. And that's probably created by the high ISO 400. The actual fishing point, or I'm not sure how you call it, is straight, so it's sharp, so that works quite nice. The waves work quite nicely too. The light is interesting, so it's coming, obviously you were shooting it in the afternoon, so the light was less harsh. So I get what you're trying to do. Technically, my biggest problem here is the noise. On this one, so let's have a look. The building seems to be sharp, although it's a really shame that it's a really small quality, low quality of the photo, so I can't see much of the details. I hope you can see it with me, how it gets pixelated as soon as I zoom in a little bit. I think it's a lovely idea of the building, but I think the light is a bit poor. It's really harsh. And I think it's a shame for this tree here. This is something what we called quite like a large confusing foreground element, and it's anytime when it's just a part of something. It can be tree, lamp, house, car, boat. When human eye doesn't recognize what it is, it just gets very confusing. That's just a composition rule, and that's how it is. I think quite often us as a photographers, we don't realize it because we're standing there, so obviously we know what it is. And it's just something what we try to avoid as much as we can. Sometimes it's impossible, nothing you can do about it, but if we can, next time when you're gonna move around with the camera, try to avoid these kind of like a significant foreground elements. Composition wise, I get the idea, although I'm not sure, because I'm not sure about the story. I think really if this red, like a fishing point, wouldn't be there and you would just photograph the water, it would actually be a stronger message. It would be creating nice texture, which could be used in the future and so on. But this is just not very strong. If maybe it would be moving, maybe it would be more kind of like a fishing storytelling, but just something, maybe try another subject in the future. On this one, I completely get the idea. Although I would prefer that it would be straight, which can be really easily done in Lightroom by using their geometry. But we can maybe just do it ourselves by doing something like this and something like this. That will help us just to straighten it a little bit. And yeah, shame for the tree. Also shame that there isn't, what I would do, I would have actually push the crop more, make it more kind of panoramatic and get the building in one side. I think this is like a, it's just missing a little bit more context for the storytelling. So that would be something what I would do. So I would come back to this, make it larger crop, come back later on during the day or early when you don't have that many shadows and when you get a better light, and see what we could do from there. I really like the texture in the sky, but other than that, I'm not 100% sure. Post-processing, I'm not sure what we could do with this one differently. I think we could get reduce of some of the noise if it would be possible. You can do some of it in a Lightroom by pushing the noise reduction, but then it starts to lose the details. But it helps a little bit to do something like this. As you can see, before and after, it really removes some of the noise and it becomes already cleaner. I think the white balance is fine. I think the editing is very natural and there is no problem with that. Moving on this one, I think it's again very natural edit, which is perfectly fine. I think a little bit more yellow in the white balance would help. Let's see if we would add more contrast maybe and a little bit more tint. And that's it. Herman, thank you so much for sending us your photos. Send us more so we can see more of your work and understand more what you're trying to do. Come back to this building and see if you could photograph it without that much of a harsh shadows. And either way, thank you so much for joining us and we hope to see more of your photos in the future. Moving on to the next photographer, John Lister. John, we saw pictures from you, I'm pretty sure, before. Let's have a look. John Lister. Last time you sent us wildlife. Oh yeah, I love the birds. Well done. So what did you send us this week? Let's check it out. So we have a monkey, very tightly cropped. And then we have this thing. And this is without a doubt one of my most favorite pictures this week. Stunning scene. I like the monkey. I think it's a lovely capture. She's all sharp. There's nice blur at the background. But let's talk about this picture because there is so much more to it and so much more interesting. So let's talk about this one. Technically, well captured. It's a lovely time of the day. The sky works really well. Everything is kind of tuned. It's a nice soft light coming. Everything is sharp. Nothing is overexposed. Everything is well lit. Well done on that one. Composition wise, it's a lovely composition. It's like a storytelling almost. Although there is the high frequency texture and there is, you know, wrinkles on the water. With a picture like this, it just works. It's everything is there. As there is a little pier or pond, which is kind of creating a leading line towards the building. The building is there. It's kind of reflecting into the water. Then it has a lovely colors, which are green, but they are not over the top. Then the warmth from the sky. I think I'm really happy with this one. Well done, John. Well done on this one. I also like this bridge. Oh, there is a person here. It's a shame that we could kind of hide her for the next time, but that's about it. Let's have a look. I'm just trying to see if there is a spot, but it was just something I saw in the corner, and there is a little bit of a like a sensor dust here, just something to keep an eye on for the future. But other than that, great. So composition wise, great. Technically great. Post-processing, nothing much I can add. A lovely natural edit, but still with a nice hint of contrast and saturation. Could the white balance be different? No, you see, anytime I check a picture and I go into the color and I switch it to auto, when it stays the same pretty much with just few points here and there, I know that you done already well. And that's the case right here. Could we do a little bit of the vignette? Maybe just more to bring you in. Yes. Could you do a little bit of dodge and burn if you would want to? Of course, you know, to add more, but it doesn't have to be there. In overall, well done. Again, John, one of my favorite pictures this week. Thank you for joining us. Moving on to the next photographer, another John, but this time John Thorpe. John, I also feel like I saw your pictures before. Let's check it out. John Thorpe. Not. Oh, yes. John, we were looking at your feathers, and last week I think it was another still life photography. So let's have a look this week what you sent us. And we have this really contrasty black and white photo. And then we have this skeleton on the texture. Okay, so let's talk about first impression here. First of all, I really like this one. I think you're heading towards the right direction. The only thing it's missing, John, is a shadow. It's missing shadow around to make it look more like it's actually on the texture. I think that's my only thing on this one. Moving on this one, heavy contrasty black and white, and actually I really like it. I know lots of photographers put these pictures down, but for me, I love midday sky with lots of white clouds, turn to black and white and make it really contrasty. I think it really works very well and it looks good. I like it, you know, and that's my opinion. Some people will say no, but I really like this one. So technically, let's jump into it. This one, everything is sharp. You have a lovely texture on your sky, so well done on that. It's well lit. I would maybe just slightly turn it a little bit because it's kind of going upwards, but otherwise very, very good. Nothing much to add there. On this one, so there is a light coming from this side, I assume, which it would be interesting what kind of light setup you were using, because you get lots of lights from here, but yet you still have some light here. And that's, I think, where, as I was saying, it's missing a little bit of the shadows, you know, just to make it more realistic. Everything seems to be sharp. The exposure is well done. Nothing much to add here, John. Moving on the artistic part. So I would do maybe a little bit different crop on this one. Let's see if we just shift it a little bit to something like this, just so I get a line down here, so it's not that distracting. Yeah, something like this I think would work just a little bit better for me. So just it's kind of sitting down and it's straight. Another thing for the next time, I would be looking for the trees to create more kind of balance composition. So you see how you have these high trees here and low trees here. Composition wise, I'm not saying if it's right or wrong, but composition rule would suggest us to have similar trees on the other side. So either look for trees when it's a similar height all the way through, or look for a composition where there is maybe just a gap and these then continue, just to make it more balanced. But otherwise, I love the sky and it's very, very pretty. Well done on that. Composition wise, it's interesting. I know you into your still life. The light on this side is on the edge of being harsh. As I say, I love the texture behind. The only thing which is missing is kind of depth of field created by some kind of shadow, making it look more realistic. But John, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sending us your photos. It's always a pleasure to see them, and I hope to see more of them in the future. Keep moving forward. It's a lots of fun. Moving on, we have a Miranda. Miranda, you send us lots of photos, and thank you for that. However, remember that it's only 2 pictures per episode, so we always try our best to go to 2, 3. You send us lots, and I wasn't really able to choose. And overall, it's a lot of photos which are more as I can even see it's probably captured with the Samsung phone, and there's nothing wrong with it, but a little bit more thoughts need to go inside of them. So let's see which one we could look at. This is quite interesting kind of structure with the heavy glow behind them. Then you have some kind of flowers with a nice leading line. This one would work quite nice if you would have got little bit further, so to get the full flower and then see the actual leading line would work a little bit nicer just for the next time. I think this is quite interesting as well, but then the tree and the whole building is tilting on one side. Then the flower, which is blurry on this side and sharp only here. This one, I'm not 100% sure about. There's a flower again. I much prefer this one to this one. Okay, so we're going to talk about this one. And let's talk about this one. So 2 pictures, as I promised. This one again, because of the leaf itself and the background, it doesn't really create much of a contrast. I think also the crop, knowing that it's kind of being clipped here, is a little bit of a shame. It's a really busy scene where you're not able to say what's the main element, what's the main subject, and what to focus on. So there's just something to keep an eye on. We were saying we're going to talk about this one. So technically it's quite nicely done. It's all sharp, although I'm thinking most of the work was done with the Samsung. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a lovely scene with the kind of watermill. There is a heavy glow coming from the sun, which gonna be a little bit overexposed, I'm sure. Let's see. Yeah, you can see everything what's white. It's actually burned on the picture. So it means that it has no details on it. So something to keep an eye on when you're taking picture. Try to bring the exposure down a little bit. You can do it on a Samsung. You just hit the screen and you move your finger down and it brings down the exposure. That's about it for this one, I think. Then we were saying we're going to talk about this one. The light is very lovely here. I really like the depth of the field created by focusing only on the flower and maybe a few of the leaves. The light is nice. The exposure is nice. So this one is much better when it comes to that. Composition wise, first I would make it a bit more straight. So let's jump to that. Something like this when we use auto, or maybe we have to do it ourselves. So let's do it here, here. That's already better. And then maybe here. Perfect. No, like this. Perfect. Then a different crop, I think. So maybe more something like when it comes to composition and you're talking about your main subject, it's really important to only leave the parts which are important for the story. So let's say something like this looks much better than something like this, because the main subject is the river and actually a sawmill. And so when we get a little bit tighter like this, we already in much better place. And then in post-processing, so if we would bring the exposure down a little, so that way we get the reduce of this heavy glow, we can bring the contrast. And I wonder if we would turn it to black and white, what would it do? That would work quite nicely too, but we can stay color. We can check and maybe add a little bit of a purple so we lose. You see how you get a kind of green tones? So if we push the tint, that helps a lot as well. Definitely vignette. To again bring focus just on the building, and I would bring up some saturation. Yep, something like this. And then maybe even more vignette by adding the gradient down here. So something like this, and definitely from the top. And then we can also bring down the clarity to make it glow more and bring up the texture. And if we would want, we can add the texture locally on the actual sawmill. Everything else can stay a little bit more glowy. Bringing up the texture and clarity. Yeah, and something like this. So let's have a look. How you before, after. More can be done with your photo. It's a lovely capture, not much problem there. This one, post-processing, all I would do, I would actually add a vignette to bring more focus to the actual flower. So something more like this. And then maybe with the brush, just add a little bit of exposure to create a little bit more contrast with the light. So something like this. And that's it. So Miranda, thank you so much for your photos. I'm sorry we cannot get through all of them. Lovely captures. Keep shooting, keep trying. And one suggestion for you is to go and try to see other photographers and sometimes even try to copy what they're doing, because by copying someone else's work, eventually the result is that we create our own style and we move forward. So either way, thank you for joining us. We hope to see more photos in the future. Just remember that it's only 1 to 2 pictures a week, which we can go through. Moving on to the next photographer, Murray, I saw pictures from you before. What was it last week? Let's check it out. Murray, we had the boats and the kind of panning and long exposure and panorama. So let's have a look at this week. What do we have? So we have this beautiful animal here and then the stairs. Let's go. Let's do it. So I'm assuming this is a sea lion, but I don't want to say 100%. Let's have a look if we have any details. Shame we don't have any details. Shame it's a kind of lower quality because we get lots of pixels around. I wish you would have sent it a little bit higher. But in overall, I really like it. It's very cute. It's very nice capture. I wonder if you were actually somewhere where the animal was in wild or if it's from a zoo. Either way, it's very nice, very nicely done. Quite like it. This one, it's nice stairs. And you know what? I just came back from Greece, and one thing which really made me sad there, it was the amount of graffiti on the walls. And maybe it's because I don't understand what it says also, but lately I'm really, it just makes me very unhappy to see how much of beautiful buildings and structures get damaged by this. And so I would prefer not to see it there, but the rest is very interesting. Leading line, the water creates nice reflection, the steps are nice, although I photograph steps quite often, and I always prefer to take the steps like a straight on down or up, or when I am like you in ankle, I always do it only when there is like an interesting subject to point at, because then you could, more you're going to the side, more you're creating leading lines with your like rails, and usually it only works when there is like an interesting subject at the back. So unless there is something about the text which I don't understand, I think there is nothing really to point at with these leading lines. Just a suggestion. But let's go through it step by step. Technically, lovely capture, everything is sharp, the light is done right. Obviously, I would love to see the whole animal, but again, this could be part of a set of photos, so I'm not too crazy about it. One thing I think you can see is lots of noise. Shame we don't see the details, but you see kind of almost artifacts happening here, and that's to do half with probably having noise in the picture, and the other half by converting it into JPEG. So try to convert them in a better quality pictures so we can see and help you a little bit more. But in overall, technically well done, well captured. I really like this one. On this one, everything is sharp all the way, which maybe in this case, if you would have gone for, you know, lower f-stop and get a little bit of depth of field, it would maybe work. Obviously, it was raining, so you get nice diffuse light, but and everything is exposed well, so technically nothing I can add here, Murray. Talking about composition, this is nice. Obviously, normally you would be looking at having the eye on the kind of golden corner, and you could talk about all of that. Also, I think it's more on the blue side. Let's see if we would push the auto. Bring down, it doesn't need to be more yellow, but I think a little bit of the purple would make the colors just a little bit more natural. But that's about it. And I really like it. I think it's very, very nice. Again, just the only thing which is really distracting is the amount of noise. On this one, I have to be honest. I'm not crazy about it. I think I've seen much nicer pictures from you, and it's just because the subject isn't that interesting. There is not like a highlight. If you would walk through this as a normal person, there is this kind of windows, you just wouldn't be thrilled by seeing the stairs. Sometimes maybe because you live there or you've been there for holidays, you see the place differently than we do, than normal people do. And I think you can do much better than this when it comes to the subject itself. I think I've seen much nicer pictures from you. So that's just something from me. Post-processing wise, this is nice. Again, I would keep an eye on the white balance. That would be one thing. Brightness, I think, is a little bit on the darker side, so just a touch. And again, like I say, a little bit of vignette just to bring the attention towards the animal. And that's it. I think it's nice. It's natural. I really like it. On this one, I wonder what we could do here. Let's have a look at the white balance. Let's have a look if black and white would help us. So let's turn it to black and white, first of all. And then let's see if we could do a different crop. Could we? Maybe not a different crop. Maybe just more cinematic. Something more like this. Yeah. And then let's really push the clarity to get bring down the clarity and push the texture. Bring down the exposure just a little bit. And then we can do some dodge and burn with the actual brush. So maybe something like this, something like this, something like this. And really kind of create something interesting here. And see if that would help us a little bit. It's just one of the things you could do. I'm not saying that it has to be black and white. I'm just saying that it's maybe something what would help us to do something a bit different, you know. Maybe like this. It's just something a bit different. Anyway, Marie, I love the animal, and I get what you're trying to do, but keep trying and send us pictures in the future. And again, so we can see them. And we can't wait to see them anyway. Murray, thank you so much. Hope to see your pictures next week. And don't forget, we're doing National Geographic special next week, so maybe the week after. We'll see. The final photographer for this part of our photography review is Patrick. Patrick sent us 2 pictures, so let's get straight into them. Patrick, so kind of texture capture, which would work great as a texture, to be honest, in Photoshop or any editor like that. And then this really nice black and white photo. I really enjoyed this one. I think that's really, really interesting capture. So first impression, I love this one. I think it's very interesting, very simple. I really like the almost silhouette capture, and I think it's lovely. On this one, as a texture, I think it's very nice and it's very interesting. That could be used for so many different things, almost like a freezing effect here, and a good eye for it. Well done. So talking about technical skills, there is not much I can talk about this one. It's a texture, and everything is sharp, it's well lit, and that's about it. The white balance, I'm not sure what it was. So I can't really, Patrick, I can't really say much more about that. You know, we cannot judge the composition of the texture or anything like that. So well done, good eye for it again. And it's something, actually, those are things you can sell now on internet. So it's really interesting, and well done on capturing it. On this one, that tells me that you have a really good eye for composition, and it's very rare. Lots of people, you know, this is something where people would walk along over and over and they would never see this view, and you capture it, and I think you capture just enough. You position the whole thing really nicely in the center, and I'm really happy with it. It's all sharp. It's the picture is probably more on the smaller sides. Yeah, 224 kilobytes. So this is why when I zoom in, it starts to get a little bit noisy, but otherwise it's lovely. Composition wise, it's great. Again, the black and white with the silhouette. I love clear message. Although usually I am against wires, in this case I think it just adds to the actual picture. I think it's well done, and congratulations, it's lovely stuff. Post-processing, I wouldn't add anything to it. I think it just works, and well done. Patrick, thank you so much. To be honest, after seeing this, I would love to see more of your work. And also, if you have a moment, join us at our new Facebook group called Clever Photographer Academy. First, we do more reviews during the week, just basically text reviews. Then we do monthly competitions where you can join us. Then we do tutorials, trainings. We also answer questions when it comes to photography. We try to do things differently and more fun. And we already have a lot of people joining us, and we would love to welcome you too. But anyway, Patrick, make sure you send us more pictures in the future. And that's it for this part. So guys, that same goes for all of you. If you enjoyed this video, and if you like to help us, make sure that you like, subscribe, and comment under the video so we can keep doing that. If you want to join us, head to our website, cleverphotographer.com/review. And that's where you can find all the dates for the Clever Photography Show. You can also find there all the links where you can upload your videos and more information about the upcoming episodes. So guys, thank you so much. I can't wait to see you again next week. And until then, keep shooting.